Now that we have an understanding of how this argument is supposed to proceed, let's try to reconstruct it. Let's try to make a formal version of this argument that we can really look at very carefully and evaluate and see if it's a good argument. Well, the argument begins with the notion of God. That is, if God exists, he's omniscient, he's omnipotent, omniscient, and benevolent. He's all-powerful, all-knowing, and benevolent. Well, let's start with the benevolence. So the assumption is a benevolent being eliminates and prevents all evil that he knows about and can eliminate it. I added one other thing. I think one thing that was missing in the original statement is you could have a being that's benevolent who doesn't eliminate evil because he doesn't know about it. That is, a benevolent person who has the power to stop some evil stuff from going on but has no idea that they're going on, has not done anything wrong. That doesn't take away from his benevolence. But if he knows about it and he can eliminate it and he doesn't, that is a problem. Now, from 1 and 2, we can conclude if God exists, then he eliminates and prevents all of the evil that he knows about and can eliminate. Right? Because we start, the first premise tells us if God exists, then he's omnipotent, omniscient, and benevolent. And then the second premise tells us what a benevolent being would do. So, therefore, if God exists, he eliminates and prevents all of the evil that he knows about and can eliminate. Now, when we think about a certain fact about omniscience, an omniscient being knows everything, so certainly 4 is true. An omniscient being knows about all the evil that exists in the world. Now, from 3 and 4, we can conclude, and we're just replacing this little fact about omniscience, we conclude number 5, that if God exists, then he eliminates or prevents all the evil that he can prevent. The idea is he knows about all of it, so knowledge is no longer an excuse for him. Well, now let's think about his power. An omnipotent being, well, can do anything, right? So an omnipotent being is able to eliminate all evil. Now, from 5 and 6, we can get the conclusion 7. If God exists, there is no evil. However, go back a couple of slides when we were discussing the issue. There is evil. So from 7 and 8, using that famous inference rule, modus tollens, we get the conclusion 9, God does not exist. So here we have a reasonable reconstruction of the argument from evil, the problem of evil, that David Hume's character Philo is attributing to Epicurus, with a few minor holes plugged. Very powerful argument. And when we look at it, the question is, if we don't think that that conclusion is right, which premise is the problem? And people have looked at various premises. There's some people look at it and they get kind of desperate and they jump over to number 8, there is evil, and they try to explain why all the bad things in the world that we talked about really weren't evil. They were only apparently evil, but they're really not evil. And I'm not really impressed with that kind of objection, but I think that's more an objection that comes out of desperation. And the desperation is when you look at it step by step. That is, it looks like 1 is true, it looks like 2 is true, and 3 follows from 1 and 2. 4 just says that he knows about all the evil, And if you take 3 and add that fact that omniscient being knows about all the evil that exists, it's got to lead you to 5. If God exists, then he eliminates or prevents all the evil that he can prevent. And if you think about the notion of omnipotence, it looks like an omnipotent being ought to be able to eliminate all evil. So it's really hard to see where this argument has gone wrong, if it has gone wrong anywhere.